In today's episode, we are going to talk about how to make your kids millionaires. We're going to discuss things like the power of time and compound interest, the optimal accounts for building wealth for your kids, custodial IRAs, custodial brokerage accounts, high yield savings accounts, how to employ your children in your business, and so much more. If you want to make your child a millionaire and build generational wealth, this episode is for you.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money flow.
Hey, babe. What are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about making millionaires.
More specifically, making your children millionaires.
Yes, building generational wealth and really the importance of getting started early because time is so important. And we've talked about this a lot on social media, in our newsletter, etc. It really is not a huge financial burden on you to start early and to make your child a millionaire by the time that they're ready to retire. Maybe sooner, but most of us are kind of trying to set our kids up for generational wealth and their retirement. So we're looking at that 60-year mark for them. But, the more you can contribute, obviously, the faster you'll make them millionaires. But this is really that conversation around making them millionaires with $50 a month, with $100 a month, with a little contribution here and there for birthdays, holidays, etc. And we want to make sure that you understand it is attainable to make your kids millionaires.
Yeah, when it comes to investing, the number one thing that's on your side is time. The longer time horizon you have to invest, the longer you have of compound interest working in your favor. So when it comes to your kids, the sooner the better. It's going to benefit them so much more as they get older. And the thing is, too, is that, as Jess said, it doesn't take a ton of money when you start early.
Yeah, really, the starting early part is the most important. Who said, was it Albert Einstein that said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world?
That's what they said. I've never actually looked up to see if that's legitimate because, I can't necessarily believe everything you see on the internet.
Yeah.
But yes.
Well, in compound interest, right, it can have a negative effect if we're talking about things like credit cards, right, where you're literally being charged daily interest on top of the previous amount of whatever your balance is, and then that literally compounds. So compound interest can be negative. We're going to be talking about the positives of compound interest and time, and that's what's going to actually accelerate your contributions to make your kids millionaires.
Yeah, and I would assume that most parents out there want to put their kids in a better place than maybe they were in at their age. So this conversation is going to revolve around the small things that you can do because, as millennials, we are balancing our own financial needs and financial constraints or whatever it may be, in our lives. But you can also do some of these small things to, help your kids put them in a better place while not sacrificing some of the things that you need to do in your own, finances.
Exactly. We're not putting away $1,000 a month for
not yet
each of our kids or anything like that, but we are automating our contributions. And honestly, the amount of money that we're putting away for them right now, we don't miss that money. No. And we know when we do see that come out, man, we are setting our kids up for success. So they don't even know how good they have it.
Yeah. So also the thing is too, is kind of shifting the conversation when it comes to just your entire family. Mm-hmm. So especially when your kids are young, they get so many gifts, whether it's their birthday, Christmas, whatever it may be. They get so many excessive gifts that they don't need. And a month or two later, they've forgotten about the toy and whatever it may be, especially when they're little. Think about when your kids are maybe 1 or 2 years old, they prefer just to play with the box. And a lot of the gifts are kind of,
you could put a marble in a water bottle and they'll play with that for longer than the expensive stuff we've been buying them.
Yeah, so it's kind of shifting the conversation with your family. And instead of, maybe getting them all these gifts, hey, why don't you contribute to their 529 plan? Why don't you contribute to their UTMA account? Because the reality is that with these gifts, it's going to have a much bigger impact in their life when they're older, when you have grandparents or uncles that are contributing to these accounts that when they get older, the compound interest on them is going to help them maybe buy their first home, maybe allow them to not have to make, decisions about job choices solely based upon income standpoint. So it's having that conversation with your entire family, because we've definitely had this conversation with our family where the grandparents sometimes want to buy too many things. We're like, hey, let's kind of hold back on all these little toys. They have more than enough toys. Our kids have way too many toys. And give money to these different accounts so that, one, it's going to be something that's beneficial to them in the future. But then also along the way, we're going to have conversations with our kids from a financial literacy standpoint, as far as understanding personal finance. Once they have a better grasp of, basic math, start understanding compound interest. So I'm going to sit down, we are going to sit down and, go over these accounts with our kids and like, hey, this is what investing in the stock means. This is what investing in an ETF means. And teaching them along the way so that they know significantly more than we did at that age.
Yeah. And I get it. Like, especially grandparents, friends of the family, they all want to see the kids open something and see their reaction. And I've told a lot of our friends and family, they love stuff from the dollar store. You don't have to go out and spend money on these big lavish things. Make most of the contribution to these accounts, or in some cases, experiences, swim lessons, sewing lessons, maybe it's a magazine subscription, things that, they're practicing their reading, they're upping their literacy, etc. Experiences like museum memberships, all of that is, I think, more meaningful than just more stuff. But even if you wanted, to have them unwrap something, the Dollar Tree is a great place for that. And then, like Brandon said, these accounts, when you can tell them, hey, look at how much money you're going to have by retirement. Here's the importance of getting started early. You can then teach them those lessons, and hopefully they'll take that forward, because that is truly how generational wealth is built. You can't just transfer the money. You have to transfer the knowledge as well.
Yeah. So we're going to start with talking about some of the different accounts that you can use to help accomplish these goals, and the pros and cons and the specific reasons for these different accounts. All right. So first, we're going to start off with the 529 plan. The 529 plan is an educational account. You're putting money away in an account where it's already been taxed, and it's growing tax deferred, which means you're not paying taxes on it while it's growing. And then when you pull the funds out to use them for qualified educational expenses, you are not taxed on any of the growth. So essentially, kind of what it is a Roth IRA for educational purposes.
And we have an entire episode on 529. So if you want to dig deep into that account, definitely go and listen to that episode. We'll make sure to link it in the show notes. I want to point out too, because one of my concerns, quote unquote, with the 529 was, well, what if our kid doesn't end up going to college? Or what if they end up getting a ton of scholarships? And because of the updates that they've recently made to 529s, that no longer has to be a concern of ours.
Yeah, so if you have any money in a 529 plan that is unused, currently you can roll over up to $35,000 into a Roth IRA for your child, which could essentially be a retirement account for them to help continuously growing tax-free.
And I do know, and you have to be, you have to really read the fine print here, but you can also use the 529 for housing expenses, among other things. So it's not just tuition, but you just, again, read the fine print, make sure that you're keeping all your receipts. But there are a lot of options for how to use that money. So if they get a bunch of scholarships, great. Maybe they want to live in an off-campus apartment. There are options for that as well. And I think even meal plans, again, if you do it kind of the right way.
Yeah, you just have to look at the specific details on what is a qualified educational expense that you can use a 529 plan for. Now, I also want to shift the conversation to currently with people with student loan debt. It is one of the biggest things that is hindering our current generation from being able to build wealth, because they have these large student loan debts and they have large monthly student loan payments. And thus that money that otherwise could be going towards investing is going towards paying off student loans. So one of the best things that you can do for your child is set them up from an educational standpoint where they don't have student loans. So although this might not be in your thought process a traditional wealth building account because you're putting money into the account and then you're using it for educational expenses, what it will allow your child to do once they graduate from college is that they don't have student loan debt. So that $1,000, $2,000 a month student loan payment, they will not have, and they could put that money towards their 401k plan, towards an IRA, towards accounts that is going to help them in the future as far as growing their wealth.
As somebody who has $100,000 of student loans or had, and we're still paying on my student loans, yeah, that makes a significant difference. So if you can get your child through college or tech school or trade school, whatever their educational path is, without them coming out with a bag of loans, I mean, Talk about setting your kid up for success.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly, that's one of the best things you can do is that your child goes to college, you can get them through without having any type of debt once they come out.
Yeah. And I mean, I have federal student loans still left, and the interest on that is 6.8%. So right now I'm trying to figure out what to do with that. And again, it's one thing I'm just like, man, when are we going to be done with this? I'm ready. I'm just ready for my lottery win so I can
I'm ready
pay
for your lottery
this
win,
off.
considering we don't even play the lottery, so it's going to be kind of hard.
That's true. That's going to be difficult. Okay, let's talk about the UTMAs. I know we talk about that a lot on our social media as well as in our newsletter. What do you want to talk about for the custodial brokerage?
So we use an UTMA account, which stands for Uniform Transfer to Minor account, and it's a custodial brokerage account, meaning that it is in your child's name. However, since they are a minor, you are on the account as well, and you are in charge of the account until the child is either 18 or 21, depending on which state you're in. So it works very much the same as any type of, other investment account as an adult would use. Like I said, the difference is that it's taxed a little bit differently. If you were to have any type of taxable transactions in it, it's taxed at a lower tax bracket since it's for your child.
Are there any drawbacks to an UTMA?
The only drawback that I would say is that once your child either reaches 18 or 21, depending on what state you're in, the account's theirs. The account is theirs. It automatically transfers over. So you don't have any control on that aspect. Now, what I would say is that hopefully in that scenario, what we're doing is that we are going to educate our kids along the way so that they have the knowledge that is needed to make good decisions.
What happens, you know how sometimes people are like, okay, add your teenager as an authorized user on your credit card. Don't even tell them. Make a couple of transactions, pay it off to help build their credit, that kind of thing. Once the UTMA transfers to your 18, maybe 21-year-old, like, what if you don't tell them that it exists? What happens then?
Well, okay, so the difference is that, one, if you're doing any type of transactions that trigger any type of taxation.
Like what? What would that be?
So, for example, let's just say you invested in one fund. Because the way that a custodial account works is that the money that goes into it, you've already paid taxes on. While it's in the account and you haven't made any type of transactions that cause a tax event, you're not paying any taxes because you would have unrealized gains in that scenario.
Okay.
But if you were to purchase one fund and it has some growth and you decided to, sell that fund to purchase another one, that could be a taxable transaction, and you would have to file the taxes in that given year in order to pay the realized gains in that scenario.
What if we're just doing a standard like S&P 500 index, and
if you don't make any changes to it, then there's no taxation. But the biggest thing is that if there is any type of taxes that are owed on the account in a given year, once the child is 18 or 21, they need to file those with their taxes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they're going to be sent the form regardless. So even if you don't have any taxable transactions, you might get a 1099 for the account just saying there's no taxation on it. You don't owe any taxes.
Okay. Now, could you still contribute to that account, or does
for
it
your child, or
does it lock down?
Oh no, you can 100% choose to contribute to the account.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I'm just kind of talking through some scenarios. Obviously, the ideal situation is you've been educating your child along the way about these various accounts. You've been prepping them to make them understand that this account is going to come to them at X age. And that the idea is that, you put a little bit of babysitting money, you put a little bit of coaching, referee money into that account.
No, we're not. So we'll get to that. We're not going to put that money into that account.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm just saying we want to continue to fund the account.
Well, so the way that we use our UTMA account with our kids, and here's a real world scenario, is that you could contribute $100 a month to the UTMA account from the day that they're born. So your child's born, you contribute $100 each month. If you're able to, go ahead and automate it. Make your life significantly easier. Now, let's just say you contribute $100 a month for 18 years until your child is 18 years old. That means that you've contributed $21,600 over the course of 18 years to that account. However, at the age of 18, if you were investing it the entire time in an S&P 500 fund, and we're going to use a rate of return of 8%, very conservative, the account at 18 would have $44,940.29. All right. Now, if you do not contribute a single dollar more, only the amount that you put in, that $21,600, you don't contribute anything else, at age 60, that account is going to have a little over $1.1 million in it.
I mean, that's significant.
That's all
You've
off
only contributed $21,600.
Yeah. And that's the power of compound interest and starting early. As I said before, the number one benefit you have to investing is a longer time horizon.
So you interrupted me because you were going to say they're going to be a millionaire even if you don't contribute anymore.
Well, I also interrupted you because you were talking about if your child is working and bringing in an income, what account that should go into.
Oh, okay.
I would not put that into an UTMA account. I would put that into a custodial Roth IRA for your child.
Oh, okay. Can we talk about that?
So,
is that the account where on Instagram it's like, make your baby a millionaire and like make them an employee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if your child has some form of earned income, let's just say they have babysitting money, they work at Chick-fil-A, whatever it may be, if they have actual earned income, they can contribute to a custodial Roth IRA. It's the same idea as like a Roth IRA for an adult. Only difference is this is for a child. So, if they have income coming in, they could contribute the same, maximum contribution that you can as an adult, up to $7,000 into the IRA. Now, the difference is that if your child does not have earned income, you cannot contribute to a custodial Roth IRA for them.
Follow the rules, people.
So if your child is not working at all, you cannot contribute for them to this account.
Clarifying question. Is this a W-2 income or like somebody, you're helping somebody clean their yard and it's kind of under the table money?
It doesn't have to be a W-2.
Okay.
You do, but like for the purpose of that, you do want to keep clean records in case for some odd reason that there is an audit,
So if like your son, not to be gender specific here, but let's just say Roman starts mowing lawns, the idea would be for him to leave a ledger.
But the thing is, I would do differently is that since we have more information, we have more knowledge. Mm-hmm. If they want to have a business, set them up an LLC.
Okay.
You can do that.
That feels like a lot for like something he might do over the summers.
But what I'm saying is that, well, also I want to use it as a lesson also.
Okay. Lots of lessons for our kids, y'all.
We have so much more access to information and we know more than our parents had access to.
That's true.
So why not pass this down to our children at an earlier age so they have a significantly higher knowledge base than we did. Okay. So I would walk them through like, hey, if you want to start just also like not saying that they have to start a business, but like walk them through what it would be like so they have a better understanding. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, maybe this is a path that I do want to pursue. Yeah. But the idea here is that if your child has earned income, they can actually contribute to a custodial Roth IRA. And I would recommend doing that over the custodial brokerage account. Reason being is that you have more tax advantages with a Roth IRA.
Okay. What are those?
There are no tax advantages with a custodial brokerage account and UTMA account.
Okay.
So with the custodial Roth IRA, it works the same where the money that you're putting into it, you've already paid taxes on. So the contributions have already been taxed. While it's in the account, it's growing tax deferred. You're not paying any taxes on the growth. And when you go to pull it out in retirement, you are able to pull the money out with no taxation on the growth.
If needed, again, just random question, could you pull money out ahead of retirement in either of these accounts? The UTMA
with the UTMA account, there are no limitations to when you can access the money. It's just like a regular adult after-tax brokerage account.
Okay.
You have no restrictions on when you can access the money.
Okay. Now, so that's a benefit.
100% a benefit. And with the custodial Roth IRA, it works the same way as a Roth IRA, where you can have access to the contributions because you've already paid taxes on that.
Okay. Just not the growth.
Yeah. So
without penalty.
Yeah. So another thing, you're in college, you can 100% use some of the contributions that you put in to pay for college expenses if you want to.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Now, I do want to point out one thing when you were talking about the whole thing as far as, if you have a business owner, how to, hire kids. This is one of the things that people do. So if you are a business owner and you do have children and they're of a certain age, because like Blue Ivy going on tour with Beyonce. Yeah, that was 100%. I guarantee you that was 100% strategic from a tax standpoint. Yeah. Because if you're able to hire your child into your business, and like I said, it has to be legitimate in the sense of like you can't have a 1-year-old running your social media account.
Didn't Drake have his kid draw his album cover art?
It has to be what I'm saying. It has to be legitimate in regards to what that child could actually do.
Okay.
So for example, if your child's extremely young, for example, with us, with the Sugar Daddy podcast, we could use our kids in our social media marketing. Mm-hmm. And that would be considered baby modeling, and we could pay them as part of our business. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason you do that is because if you're going to contribute to any of these other accounts, why not contribute it with money that is not taxed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for example, you can actually pay your child up to $15,000 for 2025 if they're under 18, and they don't have to pay taxes on that. And the income that you're paying them is a tax deduction for the business. So it's 100% tax free that you're able to have this money, and then you could put into these various accounts. So you could put, pay your child $15,000. You could put the $7,000 into a custodial or Roth IRA because they are working income, and the remaining amounts you could put into the UTMA account.
Oh yeah.
And it's all tax free.
Yeah. So, and again, you want to have proper records and have them listed as an employee. I mean, you don't want to cut corners here. Right?
I always say set it up properly. So, for example, if you are going to pay them on a biweekly basis, they have their own checking account. Put them on the payroll, pay, on a biweekly basis the same amount into their checking account. And then from their checking account, then you can go ahead and contribute it to whether the custodial Roth IRA or the UTMA account.
Okay. For the custodial account and the Roth IRA, where can people open these?
You can open them at, your Charles Schwab, Fidelity, your local bank.
Okay. Any recommendations?
I mean, me, I'm a Charles Schwab guy. That's where our accounts are at.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes it pretty easy. I think they have a good user interface. They're pretty user friendly. And if you ever need customer service, I feel as though they've done a better job as far as the customer service experience than maybe some of the other financial institutions, to be honest.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
And this is coming from somebody who has worked in the back at Fidelity.
Yeah. What do you say to the people, a lot of people are opening up like the debit cards for their kids and, high yield savings accounts. I know you have strong opinions about kids having high yield savings accounts. Do you want to get into that?
I think it starts with the goal of the money in the account. So if your child is saving money, let's just say hypothetically your child is, in 8th grade, 9th grade, and they want to start saving money up for a car. So they're going to buy a car in the next, maybe 3-4 years. That money shouldn't be invested because it's not a long enough time horizon that I would recommend investing it. So that money, it's a short-term goal, could definitely and should go into a high-yield savings account. All right?
Okay.
Now, for example, if we're talking about money that they have no intention of using, you're putting this away for them to grow for future use when they're older, not a high-yield savings account at all. 100% put that into an investment account. So if you're, like I said, that $100 a month, that you're saving for your child, do not put that into a high-yield savings account. Right now we're getting, around 4% on a high-yield savings account, whereas you can at least double that on a yearly basis in an investment account.
So what about their actual spending money though, right? Where it's like, all right, maybe you're getting money for chores, money for your birthday, and it is money that you do want them to either save and or have access to for spending.
Yeah, well, then that's going to be your high yield savings account because it's still a short-term goal. Okay. I always say that kind of like the rule of thumb they have is if you are going to use that money in less than 5 years, you don't want to invest it.
Okay.
And if you're going to, have a longer time period before you're going to access it, then go ahead and invest it.
Mm-hmm. What about, I know things are difficult now too, because, there's times where we would see our parents like either writing a check or spending cash. Our kids only ever see a swipe a card, so they don't really see that tangible money exchange. Do you have any thoughts on how to teach them or keep track of, hey, I have this amount, whether it's in a high yield savings, maybe it is a debit kind of account, debit card kind of account.
The budgeting apps.
Okay.
Honestly, the budgeting apps. If they have their checking account, they have their savings account, create a profile on one of the chosen budgeting apps, link the accounts, and they can see all the information there. Okay. Now, if you want to go old school and, show them all that stuff, that's up to you. I'm more the mindset that I want to teach them the way that it's actually going to be used in real life.
Mm-hmm. And which is going to be digital.
Yeah. Nobody's, opening up their checkbook and, quote unquote, balancing their checkbook the old way. That's just, it's unnecessary. Yeah. So you can still teach them all those lessons, just utilizing the technology that they would currently use.
Mm-hmm. Are there any pieces of...
Now, I do want to say, maybe taking your child into the bank once or twice.
That's a good experience.
Show them how to actually interact and ask for money and stuff like that, because I definitely think in such a digital world with social media and stuff like that, where we don't have to have these face-to-face interactions, I think there is something definitely lacking in their ability to have these interactions when needed. So I think, hey, if your child wants to buy something, maybe take them to the bank and have them just simply withdraw the money as cash a time or two, just so they could see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think that makes sense. Any advice for parents looking to set up these accounts and, optimize, make sure they're contributing every month,
Well, first,
strategies?
well, the first thing is, kind of deciding which account would work best for you. And that's going to be based off of what your goal is. So, for example, if you are looking to put away money for college education, then obviously the 529 plan is probably the way you want to go. So you want to look at what are the benefits of your state's 529 plan, because as our episode earlier that we said we have on 529 plans, I'd go listen to that because it gives you all the details of what you really need to think about with a 529 plan. But the idea here is think about your end goal, and that's going to help you determine which account is best for you. Once you determine which account is best for you, so let's just kind of switch it over to, we're going to do the UTMA account because it gives us a lot of flexibility as far as what the kid can do with the money. You want to choose your provider. Are you going to go with Charles Schwab? Or are you going to go with Fidelity? Whatever it may be, all these accounts you can open up online, and it's a step-by-step process, and I honestly think it's a very simple process. Once you have an understanding of what account it is that you want to open, hopping online, creating an online profile, and opening up is very simple.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else?
I would also say automate it. So
Yeah.
any type of contributions that you have, because what I've run into sometimes is that people have an idea in their mind like, oh, I want to contribute $200 a month, but they're currently not able to contribute that based upon the money they have, and they don't contribute anything. And it's a weird phenomenon, but I've seen it enough that I know that it's very common, where if you can contribute $25, $30, $40, $50, something,
$7.
$10, something is better than nothing. And what you can do is that you can gradually increase that as you are able to do so.
Yeah.
But don't have this hard set number in your mind that I want to contribute $500 to the account, but I can't do it now, but I'm gonna wait until I can. No, contribute the $10.
Missing out on that time.
You're missing out. Like, compound interest is your best friend in this scenario. So anything that you could contribute, and I would say be conservative. So like, for example, if $25, and if $25 feels fine after a few months, maybe you can increase it, but automate it to make your life significantly easier. Also, I would recommend using mutual funds for this. Reason being is that you can easily automate how much you want to contribute to the account and then automatically have it invested in, say, an S&P 500 mutual index fund. So it's one less step for you to do, because normally you have to link your accounts and the contribution can be automated and it comes in, but it comes in as cash. And then you have to take another step in order to actually invest it.
That's the part where people get stuck.
Yes.
And they've been contributing, and then that lump sum amount of money has been just sitting there in cash, which means it is not growing, so you're not getting
that's
the
even
benefit
worse.
of the compound interest.
That's even worse than not having it in a high yield savings account.
Oh, yeah.
So,
heartbreaking. We've heard heartbreaking stories about that.
Yeah. So what I would recommend doing is utilizing a mutual fund for that reason, because you can buy fractional shares of a mutual fund. So if a mutual fund says that, in order to buy a full share is $100, if you put in $50, you could buy 0.5.
Mm-hmm. Is that people have to select that when they set up the account?
Correct. So when you set up the account, you can automate the amount that you want to contribute on a monthly basis. And you can also kind of determine what day you want that amount to be, taken out of your account. So you can kind of look at what your bills are.
Payday, please.
What makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then you can take the next step and say, hey, this is the fund that I want to invest in. And I use a S&P 500 mutual fund, index mutual fund. And you can automate it so that once the money is contributed to the account, then it's automatically buys that fund.
So it's not sitting there in cash.
Correct.
And you're not missing out on
Correct.
the growth. Okay. Yeah. So we did talk about, obviously, also asking for gifts, right? For birthdays, Christmas, etc. If your kids are going to be expecting gifts, or people want to contribute in some sort of a meaningful way, this is absolutely a way to do it. We also talked about that financial education piece, especially with the account where it's going to get handed over at 18 or 21. You just don't want to hand somebody a lump sum of money. At that point, it's very likely that would be the largest amount of money that they've seen. And they're like, ooh, I can go ball out. And no, you have to teach them, like, no, we're going to leave this right here and we're going to let it grow. And here's the reason why.
But also, here's the reality, too, is that even if you were handing over a large sum of money to a 35-year-old that has no financial literacy, they're probably going to do the same thing and blow the money.
We've had those people on our podcast.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily the age thing. It's
that's
the
true.
understanding
Education.
and the education.
Yeah, absolutely. So the education is huge. And then I know this is something we've talked about, and again, we've had an episode on, but making sure that these accounts are protected in the event of an emergency, something happening, again, building that generational wealth and not letting it kind of slip through the cracks. So potentially putting these accounts into a trust, or what do you recommend there?
I mean, I'm not going to recommend anything at this point because it depends on your situation.
Okay.
But
you're not an attorney.
Correct. And so the trust, that can be beneficial, but also just simply making sure that you have the beneficiary set up correctly on the account. Yeah. It's one of the things that I go over with my clients on a yearly basis, just to make sure that all the beneficiaries on all the accounts are updated and they are accurate on who they want to be the beneficiary. So that can go a long way in and of itself.
Yeah. Again, especially if you've had changes in your relationship, your partnership, maybe you are now divorced, etc. I mean, things change. So updating your beneficiaries on an annual basis is definitely encouraged.
And at the end of the day, like, we want to stress doing something. Mm-hmm. Just doing something is significantly better than doing nothing.
You always talk about building that muscle too,
yes.
Right? Like even automating your contributions is building that muscle, because now hey, I've got $10, $15, $20, $100 coming out of my account every month to go into this account. Oh, I got a big pay raise, or I changed careers, etc. Now I can, contribute 2% more, 5% more, 10% more, but you are getting into that habit. And what I will say is when you do that, you're not going to look at this account on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. But when you do log in to see the account and you see, whoa, I've contributed $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in X amount of time, you're not going to miss that money, but you're going to be very proud of the fact that you have accumulated that and it didn't really impact your day to day.
And think about how different your life would be if maybe your parents, our parents didn't have access to this information. So I don't fault them in that aspect. But think about if your parents had this information, they did this for you. So I'm about to be 42 years old. So if my mom had done this, I could have almost $500,000 right now because of that. Mm-hmm. Just simply because of those, those small contributions. And I mean, it wouldn't be like, I'm not working anymore. I would still be working, but it would make a big difference in regards to some of the decisions we can make.
But $500,000,
oh, yeah.
Sitting in an account now that we're not trying to touch for X amount of years, that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
And so any of you guys listen to this episode, if you have any questions or anything of that nature, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. These are things that I help my clients out with all the time. So if you need some help opening the account, whatever it may be, slide into our DMs, schedule an appointment, whatever you need.
Yeah. But if you have kids, hopefully you want to make them millionaires, build that generational wealth bucket for them. And hopefully this episode was helpful. Make sure you share it with a friend or family member, and we will talk to you soon.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money.